Hello and welcome again to Coach's Corner. Today's Coach's Corner will feature Edtechteam's CEO's perspective on EdTech coaching. Thanks a lot to our special guest, Mark Wagner, who was kind enough to hang out with me on Google Hangout. As always, please like, share, or subscribe. Look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. This is Coach's Corner for those of you watching, and I am here with the Edtech team at the GAVE Summit on the pre-summit conferences, and I'm here with my special guest. You want to introduce yourself?
I'm Mark Wagner. I actually head up the Edtech team. I'm a former high school English teacher, and got the opportunity to be the tech coordinator of my high school, and later at my district, and later at the Orange County Department of Education here in Orange County. About 9 years ago, left my position at the county and started this business that became Edtechteam. And I've just been really thrilled to, since I guess it would be late 2006, to work in partnership with Google, helped run the Google Teacher Academy for a number of years, and about 2012 or so transitioned to working with them on the Summits projects. So Edtechteam now produces, this year we'll produce over 100 summits this year, so those conference style events like you just attended this past weekend, and back again next weekend. And yeah, that's just it. The whole focus of it is to empower and inspire educators, and then high energy, high impact. We hope high fun events. So, and you're lucky enough, I guess, to be there for the extended workshops between the summit weekends.
My first question is just a general question. Just your first piece of advice for somebody that is going to be, training teachers with technology. What would you tell those people? Like the first thing, all right, your first day of school, go. What are you going to tell them?
But the first thing that comes to mind is actually something I started saying to a couple of people when I was first a tech coordinator at the high school level. A couple of my fellow staff members, as I came to realize what my job was about. It was about 90% not panicking. So, if stuff wasn't working, just being the one in the room who's not panicking went a long way. And when people had woeful tales to tell, just sort of not panicking, not feeling like they were, attacking me or attacking the technology I worked so hard on, or, there was no catastrophic consequence, to most people's stories. It was just them needing to be heard and their frustrations needing to be heard. So yeah, I came to realize that about 90% of being a good tech coordinator was not panicking, and it makes people more comfortable, and it certainly beats these uptight IT guy or the tech coordinator that breaks down and cries themselves, or there's something to be said for sort of just being that steady presence that acts as if everything's going to be okay. And I would say, by the way, and I've got one of our office staff still here today, I feel like that's 90% of running this company is not panicking. Like any organization, there can be drama, and there can be frustrations, and there's growing pains and all that business. And I think it's probably a big part of leadership, even if I'm not articulating it in a particularly inspiring way.
My next question for you has to do with if let me think of how I'm going to phrase this. What is the biggest obstacle that you think that you feel like teachers run into that you and what is that obstacle they run into, and B, how do you help them overcome that? And thinking specifically about technology and implementing that.
So I think the biggest hurdle is going to depend on their context, right, or what race they're running, if I can extend that metaphor. But in some contexts, the technology itself is going to be the biggest hurdle. They don't have the bandwidth, or the computer crashes, or nobody's come to fix the Wi-Fi access point, or whatever it is like that. And that's a totally different hurdle than teachers who are in a district where the principal's not supportive, or the superintendent's not supportive, or where the pacing guide prevents them from experimenting and trying new things. and with those kinds of hurdles in mind, the story that leaps to the front of my mind is being at ISTE years ago, and I want to say it was probably 2006, so it would have been the NECC conference then. But there was an Australian guy on a panel, a guy named, appropriate for today, I suppose, right? But a guy by the name of Tom March, if memory serves. And he got asked, it was clear that in Australia at the time, there was a lot more flexibility for most teachers than there was in the US, and No Child Left Behind was looking very scary. And as there is today, there was too much of a focus on testing and accountability, and there was talk of tying that to teacher evaluations and that sort of thing. So it was sort of a kind of scary context so that might stand in for any other hurdles. But at any rate, she asks the panel, what do you say to teachers who don't feel supported by the leadership at their school in trying these things? And they were talking about Web 2.0 at the time, blogs and wikis and getting kids on social media and that sort of thing. That's still a challenge, for to even give kids their Google account in a lot of districts. And without missing a beat, Tom's message was be subversive. It was just do it anyway, and then show them how awesome it is and what an impact it had on the kids, what they were able to create, make, share, do, etc. And that I may have been listening for that message, but that was sort of a foundational moment for me where I'm like, wow. One piece of it was they do things differently in other parts of the world, but the other thing was realizing that a lot of our hurdles are self-imposed, and if we just go anyway and do it anyway, it's going to be more often than not people more quickly than they ever imagined accomplish really great things, and then they can go share it and talk about it and try to get permission to do it more.
It's that. What is it? That whole thing about asking permission first or later.
It's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. Yes,
exactly.
Absolutely. And it might be cliche, but I think that's really important for what we're doing, because we're trying to shake up a system that's pretty resistant to change.
No, I think that's a good tip, and I think that it's going to resonate with a lot of people. Building relationships, I found, is one of the common themes I've heard in a lot of these interviews, is building relationships with people. So what do you find the most authentic and best way to kind of meet people and kind of get to know them and build those relationships?
Yeah, I think this kind of it would be true whether it's face-to-face or online. But when I talk about building a personal learning network, for instance, I took a step back at one point and said, the tools are always changing. It doesn't matter if it was blogs and wikis and podcasts and Twitter and Google Plus, and there's always going to be something else that helps us connect, and of course face to face too. But I kind of boiled it down to I guess it was 4 things, if I could do this off the top of my head. But one was making connections.
Make connections.
Yeah, if you're reading somebody's blog or going to their session and you like what you see, comment back or get up and speak to them at the end of the session.
Mm-hmm.
Make the connection with the human being on the other side of whatever is drawing you to them. The next bit, to be brief, is making contributions. Right? Don't be a lurker or a troll, worse off. Right? But I always try to convince people that the things you create for class, when I started blogging, it was anything I wrote for work or school anyway, I'd post on the blog. So anything you make for class or your graduate work or a workshop, you might as well share it online, because it's going to be valuable to other educators. Even if you're struggling with something, sharing your struggle online is going to be valuable to other educators. So I think that's, and there was somebody else, I want to say it was Alec Kuros, I don't know if I'm quite attributing this properly, but somebody in our community said, it's part of our moral mandate as educators is to share.
Mm-hmm.
Most educators are public employees; they ought to be sharing what they're doing. So I think that's a big part of make the connections, but then make a contribution whatever you have to share. And I think I was, coming from education, I'd find 3 words, and I'll start with the same letter. So I talk about conversations and developing those relationships over time, and even on Twitter. That's a big part of the Edtech community are big baseball fans. And I couldn't care less, but that's the way that they connect with each other. When I post about hockey or I post about my kids, people are more likely to reply then than when I'm talking about I don't know, school change or something. But you know, allows those conversations to develop into relationships over time. I think is important. And in this framework, for me anyway, the fourth thing is making requests. So once you've kind of built that social capital of making those connections and making those contributions and developing those conversations and relationships over time, maybe your requests fall on more fertile soil. So, you know, hopefully that is hopefully that survives as an answer to the question anyway.
No, I think that's, you know, really good. And I definitely think it kind of ties into my last question about words of wisdom. So just kind of saying that, and not even just thinking about coaches, what is like a brief, inspirational, one sentence, you know, 2-sentence thing that you say to encourage people to use technology?
This will constitute words of wisdom, but it's another story I used to tell a lot, and I sort of retired it because I told it too much. But perhaps it's time to roll it out again. But I'm something of a U2 fan, and the story I used to tell at the beginning of all the Google Teacher Academies was around having gone to a concert, and I share usually this fun picture of Edge on stage. But during a concert, the U2 was playing a song that they wrote called "Miracle Drug," and not many people know it unless you're really a pretty serious U2 fan. But the song is about a kid that they went to school with in the 70s, and the kid was born paraplegic. Basically couldn't move a muscle in his body, a voluntary muscle in his body, and there's no reason to believe he was anything other than a vegetable. But as the story goes, his parents had faith that he was something other than a vegetable, and included him in their lives, and took him places, and read him poetry. And when he was about 13, they developed the miracle drug that they gave him some limited motion of his neck. And they basically put a unicorn horn on him, and he learned to type. And by 17, he was a published poet. And he went on to be a novelist, and he died young, but he was still, you know, he lived into his 30s, I think, and went on to be a well-known Irish novelist. So there's a line in the song that says, with science and the human heart, there is no limit. And I think that speaks to me to why we're bringing technology into the classroom, is that, you know, we want to harness all of this amazing technology that's happening in our world today, these hangouts and all that business, and marry that with the heart of the teacher, and I think really blow the walls off the classroom and what's possible in that context. And the sort of follow-up to that story is that when they played it live, Bono would often dedicate the song to public servants, so firefighters and doctors and sometimes teachers. And there was a funny story he told once, I think it was in Toronto, but Edge is playing the opening riffs, and it kind of sounds like a spaceship, and Bono is joking, and he says, "This is the sound Edge's spaceship made when it came down to Earth." And the crowd loves it, so he runs with the story, and he says, Edge stepped out of the spaceship, and Larry Mullen, the drummer, said, "Where are you from?" And Edge said, "The future." And Adam Clayton, the bassist, said, "What's it like?" And Edge said, "It's better." And they launch into this, you know, anthemic song about science and the human heart. And so for me, that's why we do what we do as educational technologists. We're not trying to make life hard for the IT department or create legal issues and privacy issues for the administration, but we believe that the future can be better for the students in the classroom. So that's kind of my
mantra,
inspirational anecdote, I guess you could say, is if we can marry all of this with the heart of the teacher in the classroom, we're really awesome.
Well, I end everyone with a high five, so here's your virtual high five.
All right, here we go.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Thanks so much.